Carlos, this is your seat. It's because they're all numbered 1 to 10. I think that they were very happy that I'd done that. Okay. Because I think in previous sessions that had not been the case, so they had said we have a look at the group and see whose name is first, next, or whatever. So I hope that will help. Well, there's nobody here. I didn't ask that specific question last week. So I think we just have to hope for the best. Okay. All right. Oh, and there is water, but I don't know.
We have a pointer here, or we need to move the slides with the...
I don't see a pointer.
Well, it's not a problem.
I don't know how you... Okay. So I don't know how we go back. Is a good question. The point, there was a point, there must be... so I think there's probably only a mouse. All right.
No, previews.
Previous, yeah, okay. So that's interesting.
Okay, so it's just...
So somebody will put it up on the screen.
Oh, that's it, presenter mode, that way we can see. It's easier to go from...
It's got all the, yeah.
Okay. Oh, but no, it's not in presenter
No,
mode
it's not
anymore.
where, and it's also not showing what we were looking at.
Your mouse has disappeared. Is it there? Is it? No.
I was noticing that in the past days, basically most of the time for delays spent by the speakers were because they couldn't manage the slides, or there was delay also between
Yeah.
one another. So if we have to change 10 presentations, it's gonna create significant overhead. I'm not sure if it's maybe better to merge all the slides in one or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe easier, but
No, it's too late. Yeah.
So do we have to go back to one?
That's where we're supposed to be. That's where they left.
So that's a good one?
That's where they left it.
We get some a bit more.
Hello.
I'm Véronique Chauvin. I'm the colleague of Alexandre.
Yes, Veronique, thank you very much. Yeah. So what we're going to do is get the speakers on the stage for the first hour, and we could just sit in the audience for the first hour, and then at 10 o'clock we'll change, and you will come together with the other 4 members. So, yeah, have you met Marie?
Bonjour.
From INRI.
Sénéchal?
Yes.
Sénégas.
In Brittany.
In Brittany? Yes.
My colleague in Brittany and pioneer and agroforestry.
Hmm.
Where do you come from?
Montpellier.
Ah, okay.
Dans la même unité que Christian.
D'accord.
So I hope there is somebody living, somebody alive, who can move the slides quickly, because we need the first presentation. Hello, can we have the first slide? Is that possible? So presentation 0.
No, there's not this one.
No, it's not this one. Can you open the presentation for the morning session for presentation 0? Aha, thank you. That's it. Thank you very much. So all the slides are in order, 0, 1, 2, 3, and the people will come quite quickly. So if you can be ready to change the presentation at the end of each presenter, that would be great. So the time is now almost 9. No? 2 minutes. We'll wait 2 minutes. Thank you. So if you can just have a seat for the first hour and make notes of the questions you want to ask. That's all. Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like everyone's sitting there now. Yeah. So. Okay, well, I think that's time. We've got a very tight schedule, so we'll start 30 seconds early, I think. There are 10 presenters, all of which have to speak within the first hour. So my name's Jerry Lawson. I'm the policy advisor for the European Agroforestry Federation. And I think this is going to change to the next slide. Yep. So these are the presenters that we have this morning, representing the agroforestry components of a large range of agroforestry projects. That will be followed for the last half hour of the session by 5 panelists who will represent different areas of the carbon farming world. So Alberto Mantino from the University of Pisa talking about research and the results from a workshop that was held yesterday. Valeria Forlin will join us later from DG Climat. Véronique Chauvin from Chambre d'Agriculture in France. And then Elena Black, thanks Elena, who's here in the moment. And then Yun-Chun Ko from Rabobank in the Netherlands. So I have only one slide before we pass over to Carlos as the first speaker. And then that slide is a reminder of what agroforestry is. But the crucial thing to remember is that every single country in the European Union has its own definition of agroforestry, and they're very different. So it's important for us in the carbon farming community to work with the member states and maybe refine those definitions and make sure that particularly the IAC systems that are well known to farmers, that those correctly represent agroforestry and also landscape features. So that one's work in progress. In some countries it's quite clear, in other countries it's less clear, the methods that are used at a national level to record agroforestry. So can we have slide number 1 now, or presentation number 1? Carlos, we'll pass straight over to you. I think it just happens automatically that we go to presentation number 1. Yeah. So if you can just introduce yourself. Introduce yourself while the slides are changing over.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So I am Carlos Torres from Beta Technological Center, based in Catalonia, near Barcelona, in a small medium city called Vic. So I'm the technical coordinator of Carbon Farming Med. So if you can put that, perfect. The slides, Carbon Farming Med is Interreg Euromed founded project, and I want to say at the first time, thank you, Jerry, for this invitation, and thank you for all of you. And apologies because I cannot be in the entire session. I have to present another session in the financing room. So next slide, please. I will be very briefly regarding the objectives of Carbon Farming Method, what we are achieving. So Carbon Farming Med is a project aimed to develop this resilient Mediterranean agricultural system, focusing in helping farmers to implement carbon farming as a new business model. So this permits to obtain these additional revenues, and we decided to optimize 2 different practices that maybe they can be one or a single one, that is the regenerative agricultural management, and included agroforestry due to the importance in the Mediterranean. So we want to provide the necessary tools to facilitate the carbon credits market adoption. I would like to say that was the first objective, but due to this evolution, it's not just offsetting. Maybe we can thinking in another mechanism to financing these kind of things. So let's move on to the roadmap that we planned for achieving our objectives, and we designed a 4-step methodology. At the basis, in the step 1, we want to build the foundation, creating a common framework for the carbon farming practices in the Mediterranean. Then we want to test and learn all these practices, running pilots in different territories. We have 5 pilots in Italy and 3 more in Catalonia. So we want to test and validate our methods. That is a hybrid approach using modeling and sampling in the field. So the next step was to connect and scale all these territories. So we want to create these tools that is converted now in an IT platform and let's say a meeting point for carbon sellers and buyers in the Mediterranean. And the 4th step, that is important thing to share and replicate. We want to spread this lesson learned and inspire new actions in the region. So let's move on to the project overview. This project is led by Beta Technological Center. We started on January 2024, and it will be finished on next June. So we involve the participation of 9 partners. Sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay, yeah, and 9 partners from 6 Euromed countries. And the solutions that we want to provide are 3. One is the framework of good practices and business opportunities. Another one is a carbon removals calculation platform. Then we have this scaling up strategy and market access as well. So carbon farming is always actively participating in different key events that you can see, and fortunately we have the participation of very good collaborators. So we wanna invite you to discover all our achievements in our last event that will be held on the final conference in Barcelona next 28th and 29th of May. So we will be very happy to see you there. And if you want to discover more about our project, you can check our webpage and our repository in Zenodo. So this is my last slide. Thank you, Jerry, and apologies for not being here more time.
No problem. Thank you very much, Carlos. So the next presenter is Piotr. If you can make your way, Piotr Hunga from Jung in Poland, and again you have the impossible task of describing a very excellent project in 5 minutes. So good luck.
Many thanks, Jerry, for invitation and also for opportunity to present you some findings, because it's the end of the project. I mean, we will finish this month at the end. So it was like, if I just can ask for my presentation. So the project was one of the first established in the EU. This is not this one. It's number two. Number two, yeah. So, maybe it's. Okay, so the project was one of the first established, the third one in the Interreg Central program, and as you know, there is like a research component, but of course Interreg focus on many other elements like capacity building and looking for networks and trying to capitalize and trying to like increase the impact on different regions. So in that project, okay, I will speak without the presentation. So in that project we tested in 36 trials, 7 chosen practices. So at first we did some literature review, but we also based on the yeah, this is my presentation. So so my name is Piotr Hunga, and as you see on the slide, and I represent the Research Trade Institute, also some networks like agroforestry network in Poland and also National Bioeconomy Hub in Poland. The project is coordinated by the colleagues from the Agriculture Institute in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, and also the component of the trials, which is important for this presentation, was led by my colleague Bettina, who set up the frame with our help. And what is important to say, as I started, we tested within 2 years 7 carbon farming practices. One of them was agroforestry. All of the reports related to trials and also the guide which we developed for the farmers, you can get into scanning the QR code, which is on the slide and next slides. We also tested the different business models, and last week we had the final conference in Ljubljana, and also this month at the end in Warsaw we will focus on exactly the agroforestry, connecting us with the project MIDAS, funded from the Horizon Europe, where we would like to also assess and propose the farmers what we can achieve in the whole value chain. Then we developed the strategy and action plan for the Central European countries, which are focusing on the carbon farming based on our network. And of course, there are many other outputs which I think are very interesting, like podcasts, 8 chapters, videos, feedback from the plenty of capacity building seminars in every country. There was like 3 meetings with different groups, and so we try to map all of the feelings related to the practices, also to the agroforestry, and also some information related to monitoring, which was coordinated by the University of Bologna. So related to the trials, just quick snapshots. I mean, it was difficult to, of course, look for a change in 2 seasons for the total organic carbon in the soil. But I mean, we wanted to compare and have a baseline for other practices. So because of the climatic condition and also like a tillage, for example, in the trial in Germany, we have not observed any, increase in the TOC. But of course, in other long trials, the increase was observed. But what is interesting, just to give you the snapshot, for example, measuring the biodiversity, on the trial in Poland, we observed that there was an increase of the biodiversity in the higher biodiversity index in agroforestry trial in Poland. So all of the information related to that you can find in the report. Just a few messages from myself and the team. First is that there is no like a silver bullet. I mean, of course, practices are like different to different region specific. This is what we talked at. Sometimes it's more possible to persuade the farmers in some region than to other, and it's like a really country specific. What kind of practice do we adopt? So we have to set up some of the practices specific to the farmer. And then secondly, I mean, farmers don't adopt carbon; they adopt other elements like resilience to drought or reducing of cost, or for example, the water management. Third times matters. We need the long-term support on trials, but also on the policy framework shaping. I'm finishing. Okay, and also for the knowledge. The knowledge is not a problem. The problem is the translation of all of the findings which we have. Yeah? And finally, sustainability. We have set up the Central European Carbon Farming Cluster, which has now more than 60 partners from the Europe, and we are looking for evaluation results to build on what we have achieved on the future. So many thanks from my side, and I hope we have a good session.
Thank you, Pieter. And if we can just move on while we're waiting, move on to slide presentation number 3, which will be given by Greet Reeschecht from Ilvo in Flanders. And she's going to be telling us about the Marvic project. And Greet, you can introduce yourself. So as fast as you can, slide number 3. Thank you very much. Oh, it's up already.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so yes, indeed, my name is Greet Reeschecht. I work at Ilvo, the Flanders Research Institute for Agriculture, Fisheries and Food in Belgium. And I am the coordinator of the Marvic project, and I give this presentation also on behalf of Elena Larish, who is coordinating actually the agroforestry group in our project. The Marvic project was together with MRV4SOC, like one of 2 projects that was funded and started in 2023 actually to develop MRV systems in support for the CRCF. In our project, we focus on 4 major land uses slash soil types, which is arable land, grasslands, and also agroforestry and woody crops, all 3 on mineral soils, and then we also consider managed peatlands. We have a consortium of 16 partners, and we are operating in 12 countries. The main aim of our project is to develop this MRV framework, and the aim is to guide anyone who wants to design an MRV system through this process, and also to make it context specific. Why do we think it's very important to have it context specific? Well, because the variety in farming systems, soils, climates, but also legislation and data infrastructure is very different in the different regions of Europe. So what we do is actually, we look at different aspects of the MRV system, and for the quantification, we look, for instance, what data are available, what benchmark sites are available in the region, what will be the best sampling strategy, what remote sensing can we use, what farm data are available, and so on. Then we see what models we can use, how they can be calibrated, validated against field experiments, but then also how to connect the data with these models for upscaling and for producing the so-called operational processing chains for implementation of the MRV. Then connecting everything together in this framework, and then we test the framework in the different test cases, and these include also the agroforestry systems, and we try to develop these MRV methodologies for the specific regions. We build up also on other projects, like the methodological framework that was developed in the Orcasa project. They have done this for arable land, so in our project we are also seeing how to adapt this for other land uses, such as agroforestry, but also peatlands. And of course, very particular is the fact that in these systems we also have to consider, of course, the tree biomass. So the agroforestry systems we deal with are orchards, but also short rotation coppice, tree strips and hedges in the different countries. And most of the partners, they were also already working on these systems, and in the project they are trying to improve tree measurements, allometric models, but also the soil, they improve the soil sampling and also the carbon modeling. So that's a bit dependent on the region they are in at. And maybe to feed this discussion already, so we have been thinking, okay, what do we see as challenges and synergies maybe between the projects? So as a challenge, no surprise, of course, agroforestry systems are hugely diverse in the systems in itself, but also the way they are implemented in the different countries. The definitions was already mentioned by Gary, but also it's sometimes difficult, information is lacking. For instance, what was the tree age at planting? Allometric models for biomass, we really need more data actually to make these allometric models. And also it's very important because also for the CRCF, when we use allometric models, they should be validated and calibrated actually with the local data. So we really think that we need to speed up for that. And also, of course, the carbon and the biomass in the first 10 years is very slow, so a longer term commitment is needed. So for the synergies, we think that for MRV systems developed by arable and grasslands, it's quite easy to add on these 3 modules actually to further develop for the agroforestry. Remote sensing will of course be key for the scale up, so that means also that we have really to collaborate across disciplines to make that happen. And maybe our biggest wish is like this European database for biomass and allometric functions. That could be a really nice collaborations ongoing. And then for the African connection, I'm also happy to share that Elena, who is already is also having this working with partners in Africa in this ASAP project. So these are the people that are involved for the agroforestry in our projects. You might know some of them, so feel free to reach out to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for keeping so well to time, wonderful, it's very hard. So we're moving on to number 4, presentation number 4, if you can have that ready, and that's Judith Torres from CSIC, Consejo Superior de Investigaciones Científicas in Spain. And Judith will be telling us about the agroforestry component of MRV for SOC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Yes, I'm Judith Torres. I work in the Institute of Forest Science of the Spanish National Research Council, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of one results of one of the agroforestry demo sites of MRV4SOC, where we analyze the management, the effect of the management and the forest quality on the soil organic carbon dynamic in one specific Mediterranean agroforestry system, which is the ESAs. So the ESAs, or montados in Portugal, are one of the most widespread agroforestry systems in southwestern Europe, and it's a high natural value agroforestry system with a lot of ecosystem services. However, it is increasing its threats, and it is leading to its decline to like canopy aging. They are also facing recruitment failure and also climatic stressors such as increasing acidification in this Mediterranean region. So all these threats are hinder its capacity to act as carbon sinks. We have used long-term data networks from like National Forest, Spanish National Forest Inventory and the ICP Forest Network, which are networks that are available for everyone and are harmonized. And we have chosen 388 plots of this Spanish National Forest Inventory that are the ESAs dominated by Quercus ilex from 1991 to 2017 in the whole region of Extremadura in Spain. To assess the soil organic carbon, we have used the ROTSI model with the carbon inputs from the biomass of these NFI plots and the soil inputs from the ICP forest level 1 plots and the climate data from KELSA. So the results of these ROTC simulations lead to some conclusions. First, that it is needed a long-term perspective to evaluate the soil organic carbon dynamics in the ESAs, because we have this agroforestry system which is dominated by Quercus ilex, which are a slow growth tree. So the changes in this SOC stock, it's only apparent over decadal timescales. And also we can see that the magnitude of annual SOC change is very small. We have an average of 0.03 tons per hectare per year of carbon gains. And well, one of the possible reasons of this slow carbon storage, together with that these three are very slow growth, is that maybe we are currently suffering an aging of the stand structure of these agroforestry systems. This is one result we have been observing in our study, and also is stated by several authors. And then what we have done is to relate some ecological variables of the forest, of these agroforestry systems, with the SOC dynamics. And we have found that the stand health is very important, with the tree vitality as a key positive driver of the SOC dynamics and the tree mortality as a negative one. Also, regeneration and restore are important as they are significant carbon inputs and they enable the establishment of new trees. And these findings have some implications for the carbon farming. That is, the management practices that enhance tree health and regeneration can foster the carbon sink function of the ESAs. And also the promotion of these practices not only enhance its carbon sink function, but also increase this important agroforestry system persistence. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Judith. I have a personal interest in Dehesa because I live in a village which is surrounded by Dehesa, so I need it for my firewood in the winter. And it's a wonderful system, but very worrying because a lot of the diseases that are starting to attack Dehesa, La Seca, is a major problem. So thank you. Next slide, please, will be the next presentation. Well, they're already wonderful. Thank you very much to the presenter for being so fast. So Marigom from INRE, and Mary has the very difficult task of not just talking about one project, but she has 4 projects now to talk about. So the timekeepers are going to be especially generous to Marie.
Thank you in advance. So yes, I'm presenting 4 projects, 2 which are almost finishing in the next 3 months, and 2 who are starting. And I'm an agronomist at INRAE, and I work on climate change adaptation, not mitigation, but don't worry, if you find ways to reverse climate change, I will be very happy to find other subject research. And so the slides obviously are done by a lot of people from many different projects, and I'll try to be quick. First, one slide to emphasize the importance of the contribution of agroforestry to carbon farming. So we have our place in this kind of summit. There was a first review done in 2018, and it has been, during the Galileo project, improved with a lot more publication added to the dataset to measurements of agroforestry impact on carbon farming. And stay tuned, it's in preparation, it will come out soon. In Digitaf, we have measured carbon content and bulk density in 8 different countries. in silvopasture and silvoarable systems. And the results are hugely different between the different situations, from slightly negative in terms of carbon content, for example, in the Netherlands, to more positive effects. And for the bulk density, the effect is generally negative in terms of bulk density, which means positive, good for agriculture, of course, because it's less soil compaction. You will see the details of the results and more results in Digitaf website. Then we also measured, or we are going to measure soil organic carbon in the framework of the Nemesis project. It's a project that is with living labs in 5 countries. And here it's just the one from France, so it's in the southeast of France. And we have 12 sites, agroforestry sites, because it's a living lab on soil health, but centered around agroforestry systems. And we have a whole range of soil health indicators that will be measured in the coming month. Now, going to a more exotic perspective, in the Galileo project, we also are measuring the carbon content and bulk density in different agroforestry systems. So there's a current ongoing PhD on this subject in Kenya. And also, Galileo is measuring the carbon fluxes, so at the scale of the whole ecosystem, through flux towers in Niakhar, Senegal, and it's a Federbia flux tower, and in cocoa agroforestry systems in Cameroon. And these systems are part of the global network of flux towers. And since Digitaf is focusing on digital tool, as its name implies, we also tested different carbon farming tools, among other agroforestry tools, in the 6 living labs. So we tested mainly CARAT. It's an agroforestry soil carbon model at the plot level. Then the farm carbon calculator from the UK, which is at the scale of the farm, and a new tool that we are developing in Digitaf, the Open Farm Carbon Tracker, which is an open source model at farm level too. And you can see the results presented for the Netherlands in a webinar, which is available in replay. For Italy, the results were presented yesterday by Alice. And for the UK, there will be a presentation in EURAF conference next June. And all these models and many more are also present in the tool and data catalog of Digitaf that you can look out. And Digitaf tools were also studied in Reforest, the project Reforest, where they tested some decision support tools, but mostly about biodiversity. And they developed a digital platform for interaction, social exchange, knowledge exchange that you can see here. We also, in Digitaf, worked on policy recommendations, so an analysis of the agroforestry relevant points present in different legislative documents, for example, the CRCF, Delegated Act, etc. And for that, the main recommendation that can be made is that we really need harmonization of the different data infrastructure for the different schemes, and this has been emphasized over and over during the last 2 days. And so integration of the emission accounting, harmonization of the data, and of course also of the definitions, as Jerry already said, and improve the data quality and compliance with the regulations, in particular the high value data sets. And also, well, it's not new because we have been talking about that for the last 2 days also, improve the MRV systems and strengthen the CAP climate performance, which is not as good as it could be. And also, an important message is to recognize the early adopters in order not to penalize the pioneers who took the risk, who created knowledge that can be used by all now. Reforest also had efforts towards researcher policy dialogue with several documents, focus paper produced that you can see in these links. And they also participated in the carbon workshop at the Forum Agroforestry System. And also I forgot that DigiTAF also participated in the previous Carbon Farming Summit and organized 2 sessions in this one. Finally, I want to invite you to next week in Brussels. Reforest and DigiTAF are organizing together a farmer researcher policy dialogue. It's open to all, and it's on next Thursday, and it's still possible to register. It's free, and there's a QR code and the link here. Thank you for your attention.
Excellent. Thank you, Marie. Thank you very much, Marie. So we're moving on to the next presentation, which is number 6, which is Daphne Keilman-Gonthal. I think you need to pronounce your name yourself, Daphne. I'm terribly sorry. Who's going to be talking about the Trans-Sahara project. So you'll see that Marie mentioned the Galileo project. What we're doing is talking about 3 of the European Union, African Union projects within Horizon Europe, and this is an ideal way because we've just seen some of the presentations. It may not be so many decades until we're facing North African climates in the Mediterranean, so we've got an early warning of what needs to be done to adapt to those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'm really pleased to be here. So I'm going to present the Trans-Sahara project. I can't see the slides on the screen yet. So the slides are up, but they're not here. Anyway, Trans-Sahara is an EU-funded project which started in 2024. My name is Daphne Gonthal from the chair of Urban Water Systems Engineering at the Technical University of Munich. The aim of Trans-Sahara is to take a systemic approach to agroforestry. So we are applying the water, energy, food ecosystems nexus approach. And for those who are not familiar with the concept, the idea is to say that water, energy, and food and ecosystem sectors are interlinked and need to be planned in conjunction in order to be able to take a systemic approach to sustainability. So, thank you. The background of the project is to say that we call it the Greater Northern African region, we're facing a big climate impacts, but at the same time a huge lack of data. And the result is that there will be a lot of migration out of that region, even more than now. We have 6 to 8 living labs focusing on the Sahel region, so sub-Saharan Africa, which looks like this, a very dry land ecosystem. Oops, I'm skipping ahead. Thanks. Water security is our entry point into this forging nexus approach. So we're looking at taking a cross-sectoral, but also a multi-actor, multi-scale, and multi-admin level approach. And we're working with the UNCCD Great Green Wall Initiative in order to scale up the Trans-Sahara approaches. Trying to move ahead. So in a nutshell, the nexus concept is saying that also the way that infrastructure systems have been planned in the past is in a linear way. Also in the region, the state of the art is to say if we want to plant trees or we want to regreen parts of the desert and improve food security, we need more water, so let's pump it from the aquifer. But in a lot of the projects, the recharge of the aquifer is a lot less than the abstraction, and that, of course, leads to lowering groundwater levels, which is a water security risk, because if you don't have electricity after a certain depth, you are unable to pump. So in the Trans-Sahara project, we are collecting rainwater and trying to recharge the aquifers in order to bring up the water level to save energy and at the same time improve food security by working with the soil health. So that's where carbon farming comes into it. So in our systemic view, we not only say that climate mitigation and adaptation are 2 sides of the same coin, but also that we need to look at the living labs is embedded into a bigger system in the region or in the resource basin scale. So we're looking at bringing resources also from urban areas in order to support ecosystem regeneration at the local level in our living labs in the rural context. So our key innovation that we're looking at in Trans-Sahara is to say that there's no way that we can regenerate ecosystems fast enough to offset all of the greenhouse gas emissions that we have as humanity. So we need to work on mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions in our project as well. Otherwise, only looking at the adaptation side or only carbon farming is not going to make sense. So our plan is to harvest methane from urban areas in the form of organic waste. If we put this through an anaerobic digestion process, for example, we can harvest organic fertilizer. So we capture methane, make an organic fertilizer that can be used to regenerate ecosystems in our living labs. So we're going to bury this methane in the soil, which at the same time increases the capacity of the soil to store carbon, and that in turn improves food security. And what we're doing in Trans-Sahara is to try and design a climate finance mechanism that can capture these additional value of the methane capture for the farmers in order to give a significant increase in income. So the equation is kind of the managed aquifer recharge supports soil carbon storage, methane capture from organic waste generates the organic fertilizer that we need to regenerate ecosystems, and the soil regeneration activity adds to the community income, but with support of long-term financing. Thanks. So the key performance indicators of Trans-Sahara are basically to increase the amount of data that's available to plan in this region in the first place. So we're implementing a big groundwater monitoring activity that's going to be citizen science-led. We're also looking at tailoring agroforestry in our living labs to increase crop yields, but also to have a better water security. So crops that can improve the storage of water in the soil as well as nitrogen are absolutely the key to the systemic approach. We're going to build capacities, of course, and also increase the uptake, not only of farmers, local decision makers, local communities of practice, and also what we're calling the Nexus Security Committees, by having a decision support tool that helps people take decisions on this complex set. So we'll be happy if you follow our project. Thank you very much for your attention and for having us here.
Excellent, thank you. So the third of the AU-EU projects will be presented by Ioannis Varvaris from Cyprus, and he's going to be telling us about the AfroGrow project, Ioannis. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, and also accompanied by a colleague from C4 ICRAF in Kenya. They'll introduce themselves. Thank you. So this is number 7.
Yes, it's already. Yes. So thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ioannis Varvaris from Eratosthenes Center of Excellence, and will be a joint presentation with my colleague Zambela Vitaki from C4 ICRAF. And the presentation is about agroforestry living labs for sustainable African growth. Oh, sorry. Yes. So regarding the consortium, is with the 25 diverse partners from 9 European and 6 African countries, and with the aim about strengthening the European Union and African Union partnership in support of the food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture. And for that reason, we have established 6 living labs. That is, we have adopted the definition from European Network of Living Labs that's about real-life environments and innovation ecosystems that support the co-creation and the co-develop of different management practices and the research activities. And you can see here about the living labs that are focusing on climate regulation, carbon sequestration, nutrient cycling, soil water filtering, among others, and of course, as well, the food security. The 6 living labs are across the countries, so we have across Ethiopia, Kenya, Zambia, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, each of them with specific challenges and unique opportunities based on the local communities, while the main aim is to establish a harmonized monitoring framework that will support the aspect of assessment of different management practices in relation to soil health and carbon sequestration, about plant and crop responses and the water security, about micronutrient, microclimate, and the socioeconomic development assessment. Then it's also about regarding the diseases and pests, and all of them with the umbrella of One Health approach about the disease risk assessment. And finally, one of the main priorities is about reducing the inequalities in the agroforestry sector across the African Union.
So now I'm going to speak about in AfroGrow, the tools that we're utilizing through C4E-Craft, some of the tools for advancing MRV for agroforestry carbon farming through soil spectroscopy, remote sensing, and digital monitoring. So in AfroGrow, we will implement what we call the Land Degradation Surveillance Framework, the LDSF. So at C4E-Craft, the scientists developed this framework in order to understand the multiple dimensions of soil health for ecosystem restoration, food and nutrition security, and climate change. You can see a few of the key indicators that we're measuring through the LDSF, for example, the land use, land degradation, soil health, among others. So here, the key is to be systematic. So we're systematic sampling. And we're using innovative methods for soil analysis. Specifically, we shine light on soil. In order, we reduce by 90% of the cost for measuring, predicting soil properties. So we're a leading global lab for accurate, cost-efficient, and rapid analysis of soil, plants, and inputs using soil spectroscopy. We have over 200,000 georeference samples barcoded in our physical archive, and we're the gold standard lab for FAO close land. Here you can see where we already using the LDSF, and this network is expanding every year. And now, in AfroGrow, what we will do is to advance the development, application, and scaling of soil spectroscopy by coupling remote sensing, machine learning for rapid and accurate assessments of soil health at scale. Here, you can see the models that are already developed for predicting some of the cases, not all. For example, the base cations, pH, total nitrogens, and of course, soil organic carbon. And what you see here is on validation, and we predict with over 0.9 R². Another tool is about regreening up crowdsourced data. So here, the most important is an offline application. It's free to use for farmers near real time, and we can share data easily with other stakeholders. Here is just an example of one of the modules, the tree planting module. And here you can see what we see at our end about the greening up data reporting system. So now to conclude, 3 concrete questions that we might think about later in the discussion is how can African Living Lab strengthen the EU-AU partnership for scaling agroforestry carbon farming? Second one is what role can soil spectroscopy play in making MRV systems more scalable and affordable for smallholder agroforestry systems? And finally, how could farmer-based digital platforms like the Greening Africa app be integrated into MRV systems for carbon farming and biodiversity monitoring? Thank you so much, and if you would like to follow the AfroGrow's journey, please scan the QR code. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed to both presenters for keeping so well to time also. So we're moving on to presentation number 8, Hugh McDonald from Ecologic, that you will know well. So Hugh, I don't know if you're an agroforestry expert, Hugh, but you're going to do your very best to talk about the agroforestry component of CAFMOR. So thank you very much.
Oh, no expert, but I'll do my best. So the CAFMOR project started last year, and I'm presenting on behalf of Jan-Peter Leschen and Jenny van der Kolk from Wageningen, who are our coordinators, and the CAFMOR partners, of which there are, I think, 35 here at the conference. More than at the kickoff, almost, I think. The rationale and the objective for the project really just picks up from where the Digit AF conclusion slide left off. We see limited uptake of carbon farming in the EU, yet there's administrative burden, and a key barrier is the transaction costs. and the accuracy of quantification methodologies. And so the objective of the project as a whole is really to develop an EU-wide parcel-based monitoring, verification and reporting system for carbon farming, and then some additional things on the side of that, which I'll take us through. Yeah, so there's kind of 6 key parts to the CAFMOR project. There's the mapping of the carbon farming ecosystem, which is the part I'm a bit more involved in, along with colleagues from AgroSolution and I4CE, which is looking at the kind of the economic side of things, trying to understand the market for these, both in terms of supply and in demand. The project's building comprehensive data catalogs, developing quantification and standardized baseline methodologies. Improving accuracy and cost efficiency is obviously a key goal here. So this is using things like remote sensing, modeling, soil sampling strategies, along with some of the stuff that we're doing on the marketplace side of things. And developing a registry, one of a few kind of pilot registries that will be tested out for the Commission. And of course, this is all happening in project pilots as well. And there's 7 pilots across the project, including 2 or 3 that are focusing on agroforestry. I had 3 in my count, but maybe Jerry can correct. So yeah, as I mentioned, you'll recognize these smiling faces on the photograph because we're all around the conference. We had a nice dinner last night. It's a really cool consortium just based in Europe. Yeah, and more specifically on the agroforestry aspects in CAFMOR. Okay, so there's 7 pilots I mentioned. 3 of them are featuring agroforestry as a bit of a focus, alongside other carbon farming actions. So in Belgium, Flanders, maybe in the Netherlands, yes, I'm getting a nod, and in Spain. And so this is using things like remote sensing and a focus on the kind of MRV aspects in the Belgium, Flanders one. In the Spanish case, it's got quite broad selection of different agroforestry approaches, I understand. And the Netherlands one, we're gonna have to check with Jerry because I couldn't find the information this morning. But just the point to make here, I think, is that yeah, the agroforestry is featured across these and will be built into the overall results of the project. It's not just focused on more narrowly on other carbon farming SOC issues. There's also a specific task which is looking at ground truthing and earth observation and the role that they can play in agroforestry MRV. And in the work that we're doing in Work Package 6 on carbon farming economics and market opportunities, we've also got agroforestry as a focus. It's along with the other carbon farming certificates that will result. And Jerry is leading a multi-actor working group on agroforestry to make sure that agroforestry is kind of infiltrated throughout the project and then exfiltrated as well to the wider world. I do have 1 more minute, so I will talk just briefly about the thing that I know a little bit more about, which is the carbon farming economics and market opportunities work package. I'd be happy to speak with people about this. Particularly, I've been taking down all of the deliverables related to this topic, more specifically related to agroforestry. So if you do have economics-related agroforestry reports from the projects that have been presented today, certainly for the carbon med one, I spotted one, would like it. We're in the first phase at the moment, which is really just gathering all the information that is already out there on what business models, opportunities and barriers are, and who the kind of key actors are in this world. But we're moving quickly on to looking at the demand side, characterizing the supply side for carbon farming certificates, and also thinking a bit more broadly, 1 step back, about how this might change over time if we think about innovations on the technology side, particularly around fertilizers and additives, these sorts of things, and also the system barriers and opportunities off-farm that might unlock greater supply or demand of carbon farming certificates, or carbon farming more generally, I should say. And of course, we'll make some policy recommendations on the basis of this. Okay, thank you for the time and looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so if you can have number 9 ready, that would be great. So the next speaker is Carmelo Bonella from OpenGeoHub, and Carmelo will be talking about the OGCR, which is the Open Geospatial Carbon Register, which is the sister project of CAFMOR that we've already heard about, and working very well together. I think there have been a number of joint meetings and sessions organized by the two, and by complete accident, both of them are within about 20 kilometers of Wageningen, so the leaders have got every reason to work very well together. So over to you, Camille.
Thanks, Jerry. Hi everyone, I'm Carmelo Bonanella. I work as a researcher and technical project manager at the Open Geob Foundation. As Jerry mentioned, this is a sister project of the previous presented project CAFAMOR and Open Geospatial Carbon Registry. I hope that you have heard of this in the past few days. It's been mentioned in different sessions. If not, I will give you a brief introduction. I see you're all tired, and I hope that this will not go in the maelstrom of acronyms that you have heard in the past 2 days. So as you can see, the project just started last year, so we're going to have our first year meeting in July this year. We put together different partners, like more than 20 across different European countries, plus some partners also from Canada. Europe is part of the consortium, and I'm presenting this on behalf of Konstantin Muraru from Europe, who could not join the summit. And the partners, as you can see, basically come from different sectors, from soil monitoring, biomass monitoring, geospatial monitoring, machine learning, remote sensing, policy, UX, design, and so on. But this is just to mention that we are trying to put together different fields to not treat MRV as a problem, not just a modeling problem, but to approach it from different angles. So basically the ambition of the project is not only to build a prototype of what should be the Geospatial Carbon Registry for Europe, but also to provide, let's say, a low-cost and easy to access system for all the farmers and agroforesters or foresters across Europe. As we have mentioned, it's not many times in this summit and also today as well, it's not a problem of knowledge, it's more a problem of uptake and trust from the farmers in the tools that they are given to them. So the idea is to build it in an open source way, following fair and care compliant principles, and then to basically to support that into a just environmental transition for us all. One main point that we try to include in the design of the project is to provide a harmonized, unified framework across different fields, so from both the modeling component or the data harmonization, the uncertainty calculation, and so on, so that everything could be applied consistently from parcel level to a European scale. One big decision that we decided that we took when we wrote the proposal was to put the landowners and the land managers first in the system rather than working our way back to them through the other tools and policies that are available currently. And for this, I mean, we do not have specific results, as we said, from the agroforestry perspective because we just started, but from Europe, we have already more than 100 farms that are enrolled in the program. And this, putting the farmers first, it's basically from this participatory monitoring protocol that we designed. So the idea is to have both soil sampling in all the farms that we have, one participating parcel basically, and we have our own protocol that has been circulated through the farmers, and the sampling should start more or less soon, while instead for tree biomass we have a more simple sampling protocol, which is just using handheld LiDAR scans, which are as much as possible compliant in terms of performances and accuracy with traditional calibration with the calibers of the trees in traditional tree monitoring. And why do we do this? It's because we try to improve our models that are working at a regional, national, or continental scale and are based either from a data-driven perspective on remote sensing or process-based modeling with local refitting of the models with the data provided by the farmers. So in this way, we should have not only better parcel baseline, but also a reduced uncertainty on a large scale. And if you are a farmer or you know people that are interested in participating into this participatory monitoring protocol, please use the QR code, which will redirect you to a form where you can provide your interest and register and follow the updates on the participatory monitoring. Thanks.
Okay, the 10th, number 10, and last presentation is from Dienda Hendran from the Tunen Institute, who won't be talking about a specific project, but he'll be talking about a number of different projects within the voluntary carbon market scene for us. So, Dienda.
Thank you, Jerry. So, good morning. My name is Dienda Henrawan. I'm a researcher at the Tunen Institute based in Germany. And I'm going to present our current research on insights from agroforestry projects in the voluntary carbon market. So the voluntary carbon market allows private finance mobilization for climate mitigation and carbon removal projects. But in the VCM registries, agroforestry typically appears as an activity within the AFOLU projects. So basically, it's difficult to see which projects actually implement agroforestry. Sometimes the projects appear as afforestation or reforestation project. Sometimes they appear as sustainable grassland management or sustainable agriculture project. As a result, the contribution of agroforestry to climate mitigation in the voluntary carbon market remains difficult to assess. And to address this challenge, we systematically identify agroforestry projects in the voluntary carbon markets and assess their role in climate mitigation. So this slide summarizes the framework we developed to identify the agroforestry projects from more than 10,000 voluntary carbon market projects, and this builds on an agroforestry principle from the FAO Agri-Food VCM Projects report, which was published in 2025. So our data set combines data from multiple registries, which includes the VERA, Gold Standard, ACR, CAR, Plan Vivo, and then the ACORN registry. But for this study, we only focus on the agroforestry projects, which include the tree biomass as part of the carbon pool of the accounting. And so here we can see the growth of agroforestry projects in the voluntary carbon market. The data is from 178 projects, which is a conservative estimate of the amount of agroforestry projects in the voluntary carbon market, since we don't include the projects that are only considering soil as carbon pool. So as you can see, the projects increased gradually between 2010 to 2015, and then after 2018, there is a rapid expansion of new agroforestry projects listed in the voluntary carbon market. So this map shows the global distribution of agroforestry projects in the voluntary carbon markets. The projects are concentrated in developing countries, particularly in regions dominated by smallholder agriculture. And then the agroforestry is the main source of carbon removal of 4.9% of AFOLU projects in the VCM. And 58% of these projects are listed under the VERA standard and followed by ACORN with 16%, and then Plan Vivo with 14%, and then 12% of the projects are under the gold standard. And the most projects are located in India with 55 projects, and then followed by Kenya and Uganda. And then we found that agroforestry has contributed in at least 24.5 million credits issued. So that's 2.5% of credits produced in the AFOLU sector. And then this is also a conservative estimate. If we include agroforestry contribution to projects only accounting soil organic carbon, then the contribution is, of course, larger. Sorry. And then Uganda, Nicaragua, and Kenya are the top supplier countries for the carbon credits. And based on the standard, Plan Vivo has contributed to around 64% of the agroforestry carbon credits. Yeah, so the takeaway of this study is agroforestry represents a smaller but a growing and notable share of credits in the AFOLU sector in the voluntary carbon market. And by systematically identifying agroforestry projects, we hope to better understand and make visible the contribution of agroforestry to climate mitigation. And this work is ongoing, and future research will explore the co-benefits and links to emerging policy frameworks such as the EU CRCF and Paris Agreement Article 6. Thank you.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Thank you very much to all the presenters and to the timekeepers. It's astonishing. It's exactly 10 o'clock, which is where we should be. And exactly 10 o'clock, the panel comes onto the stage. So just everyone come on and you can introduce yourself. So thank you very much. So for the panel, we have Alberto Mantino coming. Alberto is a professor at the University of Pisa and been active in agroforestry research for a long time. And interestingly, Alberto chaired a session, the A8 session yesterday, which was all about agroforestry, so he'll be able to give a summary of what was decided at that session as well. And Valeria Forlin is next. Valeria, thank you very much. Valeria has steered, and she's presented a couple of times, I think, at this meeting already, but she's steered the CRCF, and particularly the Delegated Act of for carbon farming extremely well. And I must say, I've been very impressed with the way that DG Klima have attempted to build bridges across the Commission. It doesn't always happen, but they've tried their very best to build in the interests of DG Agri, DG Environment, DG FISMA, DG Connect, everybody else in what they've been doing. And I think we see that, by the way, that other bits of the Commission, for example, in the work of the nature credits expert group, are looking very much to what has already been done within the CRCF to move this principle forward of gaining nature credits, potentially also for carbon credits. Helena, I haven't prepared anything particularly for you, but I've known Helena for a long time. We've worked in the same places at different times, and only through the last Carbon Farming Summit did I finally meet Helena. But she's a wonderful expert about soil carbon measurement techniques, and can give us a point of view about agroforestry carbon farming from the point of view of the operator. Veronique Chauvin is the next member who comes from the Chambre d'Agriculture in Pays de Loire district of France, and Valeria is one of the, so that's the Farmers Union in French, and she's one of the biodiversity experts. And we have some of these difficult questions about how we can factor in the additional value of high biodiversity carbon farming. And then lastly, we've got Yung-Chung Koon from Rabobank in the Netherlands. And Rabobank is very interesting because they don't, I think you're still only, in Europe, you're still only financing projects in the Netherlands, I think, but they finance projects everywhere else through the rest of the world, so you'll be able to give us a very useful international view of the issues that we've heard. So the first question is, the first issue, I think, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, because I have just given a gloss. So maybe you can pass the microphone along and do that in order. Yeah, so start with Alberto. What interests you about agroforestry?
What about me, or what about agroforestry? Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm an agroforestry researcher for almost all of my time. I'm a professor now at the University of Pisa, and I'm also the national delegate in EURAF for Italy, so I'm very interested to be here. And yesterday we had a very exciting workshop session with about 40 participants, and I will be very happy to somehow highlight the key outcomes of yesterday.
Just a quick introduction to yourself.
Yes, I'm Valeria. I have been working in DG Klima now for 10 years, initially more on the LULUCF regulation, and now for the last, I think, 5 years on CRCF since its inception. I have a background in economics. Actually, after my PhD, I started working in DG Klima, so my career is very, very short to introduce.
Hi everyone, I'm Helena Black, and I am not an agroforestry expert by any stretch of imagination, but I'm a soil scientist, soil ecologist that's worked in many agricultural systems, including a little bit of agroforestry, but increasingly being asked to sample agroforestry systems. So I've come here today to maybe give you some of my thoughts from trying to learn how to do that.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Veronique Chauvin. I'm a head of the Department of Trees and Biodiversity in Chamber of Agriculture in Pays de la Loire. and I work with 17 advisors, work with 300 farmers about agroforestry, with edge and interparcel agroforestry. And we make 15 plan sustainable management plan for agroforestry per year for low carbon credits.
Good morning, everyone. Yun Chong Kuo from Acorn Rabobank within the Netherlands. So working with Acorn as a carbon standard lead, we closely monitoring the standards in the voluntarily carbon market. And then our mission at Acorn from the very beginning is to empower the smallholder farmers globally, especially the most vulnerable ones. So it's very happy to see the last few days of the session that what we can learn also from EU CRCF, and then this methodology convergence and harmonization, and how we can apply that globally and then help more farmers in a different continent of the world to transition to this journey.
That's great. But just keep the microphone a little bit, because if you can just pass the microphone back. No, well, okay. We'll keep it. So the first question for everyone apart from Alberto is what interested you, what grabbed you, what was exciting about the past hour? What have you learned from these presentations in the past hour? Anyway, yep. You keep going. Go in that order.
Yeah, I can start. Okay, so it's very interesting because what I see is the program within EU. Some of the pain points that we see is also common in the programs we have, the projects we have in Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, for example. So the first thing is I heard from the previous presenters saying timing and additional revenue. This kind of issue is very important because we want the farmers to transition to agroforestry. And then often the smallholder farmers in Kenya, Uganda, in India, they are subsistence farmer. It's very high initial investment cost for them, and that's the main financial barrier for them to transition to this agroforestry. And if you want them to participate in this journey, the commitment and incentives are important. Otherwise, it's very difficult to convince the farmers to sign up a journey for a commitment for 30 years, 40 years. That's what we see now in the voluntary carbon market, that the project longevity is becoming longer and longer. But then from the incentive side, from the benefit sharing side, farmers have to benefit from it in order to co-participate and then make this change together.
Okay. For me, it's interesting to look after the evolution. I was in Dublin last year, and I see that this session takes the farmers in the center of the issues. And in different sessions and posters, we observe that the scientists, the businesses think about carbon and co-benefits for biodiversity, water quality, or other element. But for farmers, it's the contrary. They make agroecological practices in first for wellness of the animals. Crops are auxiliaries, their wellness, and for biodiversity, water quality, soil, and the carbon is the co-benefits. And they want to increase their income with carbon credits. It's a way, is not the finality. And they make their transition without carbon, but they need carbon credits for limited the risk, because they take a risk when they go to regenerative agriculture or other organic practices, etc., etc.
I was going to say that. But just to re-emphasize that, I think there is a big take-home message here that generically it takes a very, very long time to see the benefits of managing for soil carbon. It's a long-term process. But actually some of the outcomes of adding organic matter to soils is actually much faster and can actually introduce benefits quicker to the people that are managing the land, and we should not forget that fact. It's not just about the carbon we're measuring, it's about the impact of the organic matter. And I have to say the project, I'm terrible with names, so I have to apologise, Daphne, from the Trans-Saharan project, very close to my heart because I've worked in that particular region of Ethiopia with Hawassa University. Funnily enough, linking Rothsea to Invest model to look to see how soil carbon and smallholder farmers could improve not only the individual farmers, but also the quality as well as the quantity of water. So I think there's a very strong message that we need to look beyond just what the trees in that system are doing for the individual farmer. There's a much wider benefit to be achieved from carrying this out.
Yeah, personally, what was interesting for me was this dimension in Africa, because my job is always about the European Union. This is a bit out of my radar, so it was something new for me to learn. And the water element that was stressed as so important in those projects is also something that retained my attention, because I don't often think in those terms. And as you said, very likely, water is already a very big problem, but it will become more and more important. So yeah, that was interesting, but also the focus of many projects on the soil component, even if you're talking about trees, makes me think, underlines the importance of agroforestry systems for soil carbon. And it's good that we have better data there, because we need models to show that also for purposes of certification. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thanks indeed, Valeria. I'm giving Alberto two questions. So what did you learn in the last hour, but also what did you learn yesterday in the workshop session that you organized?
Thank you, Jerry, for the question. And a lot of the very important aspects. And agroforestry could be, if correctly designed, implement, and manage both adaptation and mitigation strategy. And this is key because it's also, in the short term, we could have more results and positive aspects that respect some kind of strategies that are only related to soil carbon. This is more than carbon borne in the soil. It's more about different co-benefits of planting trees and farming with trees in general. And but there is a huge lack of several aspects, unfortunately, to a correct implementation and development somehow of agroforestry. Yesterday, with about 40 participants, as I told you before, we understand that we need a sort of community of practices and to create more relation among farmers, because sometimes it's only about pioneers, as also somehow presented here before in a previous presentation. And we need to stress the fact that peer-to-peer learning between farmers it's one of the strategy to improve, and the ability and also the availability of the farmers to implement agroforestry, that it's a completely change of point of view respect to the past. It's a diversification approach. In the last 40 years, we have a simplification approach of farming system. So it's not only a matter of planting trees. It's a completely change of your expectation somehow of about farming in general. And but unfortunately, in terms of investments, as
here we talked before, there is a sort of lack of value chain and key actors to be able to have revenue for farmers and to have a correct value chain framework for not only for trees but also for fruit about the trees, and somehow to increase the profitability of the system, not only related to credits, not only related to natural or carbon credits. There is a lack of trainers, there is a lack of advisors, a lot of personnel involved in this kind of increase of the knowledge about the tree management out of forest. And concluding, one of very important aspect is that a tree in farmland is more than a strategy to stock carbon, and probably we have or we should think about how to add other credits to carbon credits, so natural credits, because trees could be a reduction of evapotranspiration, so water retention could be different, diversification of products could be several aspects related to an ecological benefits of agroforestry in general. So why not to think how to merge different credits and try to increase the profitability of this strategy for farmers.
Okay.
And that's it.
Let's widen that question then, and I guess it's a question to Veronique more than anything else. We're seeing, in fact, yesterday there's a meeting of the second meeting of the expert group on nature credits in Brussels. I don't know what they're discussing, but they seem to be looking towards the CRCF as an example of how biodiversity advantages can be priced in some ways. So have you got any views for how we can do that moving forward? Do you see, for example, should we use a high biodiversity ton of carbon at a higher price, or should we completely separate the value of the carbon from the value of the biodiversity?
No, it's important to have one system with a global vision of the farm. Because for farmers, it's very disturbing to have so many programs for carbon. One program is really important, and CRCF can help that. And we observe that we can convey more and more farmers if you have a simple process with simple contract, clear element for managing the carbon change with the indicators, the monitoring, and to have a global vision of the exploitation. The farm have in France numerous production. We have cattle, poultry, crops, and honeys. We have so many, and we have carbon credit for crops, carbon credits for livestock, and it is not optimized. We need a system who harmonize all this process.
Good. Anybody else want to add on biodiversity credits? How to value biodiversity? No. No. Yep.
So I must say we haven't started looking at this in technical terms with DG Environment, but so this is just my initial idea, but there are some projects which are mainly biodiversity, like conservation of whole growth forests, of conservation of habitats, and there paying for conservation is a completely different logic than CRCF. I mean, CRCF could remain the same structure for the registry, the certification process could stay, but the methodologies would be probably very different. But when it's about a practice that is both carbon and biodiversity, indeed I think we can strengthen how we monitor, maybe quantify the biodiversity impacts if the farmer wants to show some numbers for that. But we don't need to make it too complicated. It can also just be a qualitative assessment, and let's just acknowledge the biodiversity importance of this activity, but maybe there is no need to have one credit for one unit of nature if that's too complicated to compute. No, let's just get going. So I think it's this is how I see it now, but it may very well change because I still need to look into it really into it. I know there were some sessions about it in the summit, but I didn't unfortunately have time to follow them.
Helena?
So I'm going to come at this from a different angle because I'm also involved in projects looking at rewilding and nature restoration in Scotland as a sidekick from soils. And one of the things I would say from my experiences there is that I fully support what you're saying. We do not need to have multiple methodologies, multiple credits, multiple approaches. I think we really need to start to think about a single methodology for a metric that we can afford to measure in detail, that is the quantified credit unit. The rest is a co-benefit and adds value to that credit. And make those metrics, particularly biodiversity, simple, repeatable and achievable. And the reason why I say that, I've seen a lot of time spent looking at quite complicated ecological metrics that in reality are not going to be deliverable over decades. And that's what we're looking for. We have to have tools that are simple, easy to apply, consistent, repeatable. And I don't know what happened to the LBC, the Laba Carbon, pardon my French, but I know that there was talk there about if there was a biodiversity angle, then the credit was worth more because that was added to it. But I will add one thing to that also, particularly in relation to agroforestry, I'll come back to. I think water is probably, to me, the first one to go for to add value. Not detrimenting biodiversity, but it's the one that I've seen that is the clearest outcome, particularly when working in areas with smallholder farmers.
Yep. Yep, please.
I want to add, it's important to integrate farmers who make good practices since long time, and not only for the new one.
That was going to be my next question. Can I try to? So that was going to be my next question. Obviously, the farmers that have been using nature-based practices for a long time have not got the ability to demonstrate a high delta, a high improvement. Everybody recognizes this. I think it's a difficult question for me to ask Valeria, but you might have some ideas, and I think you have already mentioned that DG Klima is looking at this. Can you offer any hope to these early movers?
So, but as you know well, now we have a bit of a initial onboarding of early movers. So projects that started recently can still be considered, well, they're not considered additional by default. One part of additionality, which is the incentive effect. So you need to show that you only started because of the project, because of certification, does not apply. You could have started before certification. You still have to show that the activity is financially additional, so you need money to go on. Sorry. This is because if, from a perspective of the buyer, you want to be sure that if you're paying for something that would not have happened otherwise. And this is unfortunate. This is how carbon markets work, and the point is we put money where it makes a difference. But then for the perspective of the farmer, of course, thank you, that's really what I need. From the perspective of the farmer, of course, that might seem unfair, but it's another type of finance that they need. It's a finance about, it can be public support from the CAP, where there are still a lot of eco schemes and measures that can support that. So CRCF is not the tool that is going to do everything at the same time. But what we are considering is another type of finance, which is the interest of companies in the value chain of farmers to show that in their value chain the emissions are lower, and this does not necessarily require additionality. It's just an inventory approach. So in an inventory approach, we also ore removers would be recognized and possibly, hopefully, have some more market power in their contractual conditions, because if you want to buy food from me, and you should pay me more because I have a lower emission factor. I understand these discussions are really, these rules, the reporting rules are really complicated, but this might imply that we need to change something in the regulation and specify that additionality as it is currently defined is needed for the purpose of issuing units, but another type of additionality, or more like a performance assessment without additionality, is enough for the purposes of verifying the emission factor of this parcel of land without any credit attached to it. But we are looking into it. So we are really looking into doing this right and aligned with international standards for Scope 3 reporting and accounting.
Yep. We haven't got much time, but I had to mention the soil, and I have to give a question to Elena and also to Alberto. The delegated act is quite demanding when it comes to the accuracy of models. So we've got this double 90% rule. So the samples that you use to validate your model has to be within 90%, or 90% of the samples have to be within 90% of the confidence limit of the model. Okay, yeah, Clara.
I think 90% is for biomass and 70% for soil.
Okay,
yeah.
That's a little bit better then. But Elena, as one of the authors of the recent soil sampling and analysis report, and lots of other things, how do you throw your hands up in horror at the complexity of agroforestry compared to a nice simple soil with a crop growing on it?
Thank you for that question, because it was actually something I wanted to raise, because on reflection, I think we do need to think carefully about the guidance about sampling within agroforestry sets, and for Vera and also for the CRCF, and I'm not sure we've been clear enough in trying to help people manoeuvre through this. Partly from my increasing practical experience of on the ground of what you have to deal with, because we are working, in theory you can sample stratified random, etc., get a representative population of your data so that it's sufficient for the models. But the trees in the SIDM add such an additional layer of heterogeneity that we need to be careful that we consider that. What are the trees like now? What trees were they in the past? If you've ever tried sampling around tree stumps, you'll know what I mean. What are they going to grow into? What's the distance? What equipment can you get within there? But I'm going to raise something else that I think is also broader, which interestingly comes back to this idea of is it emission reductions or is it removals? We're talking about two management parts within agroforestry. So you have your tree, that tree growing, that tree biomass, the carbon and soils associated with that tree, but you then have the management between those trees, which is very different again. And the question is, what are you actually looking to quantify, whether that's credit or Scope 3? Is it the management between the trees, or is it the trees and what they're doing, or is it a combination of both? And you have to be quite clear to guide the sampling to collect the right data, because it's to be assured that you've got a representative sample. And as I say, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a ramble, but it's the sort of things that the guys that were talking earlier have made to reinforce to me that we need to be a little bit clearer in terms of how you got at quantification. So thanks for asking that, Jerry.
Yeah, Valeria wanted to add.
But if I understand your point, I will react. Why do you need to disentangle the soil carbon impact of the agroforestry and the soil carbon impact of the management practice? Because this is a discussion we had in the very beginning. You remember, Jerry, we were discussing whether agroforestry should be together with the afforestation methodology or the agricultural methodology, because in terms of MRV, it's more similar to afforestation. But then the point was, as the impacts on the soil are so entangled with agriculture, it should be together with agriculture. And is there really a need to then disentangle the two effects on soil? The point was to combine them, no?
I'm sorry I've confused you, right? I think, I absolutely agree, you combine them, right? But I think we need to be clear what it is we're trying to determine the impact of in that system. So, as many here have demonstrated, the tree impact in many agroforestry systems in terms of carbon may be minimal, may take a long time to see. But actually, I've worked on projects where you can see people introduce cover, mixed diversity plant species, the other things that they're planting between those trees that do actually have quite a clear impact on soil carbon. And if you measure that component alone, you will see, you can see, not in all instances, but you can see a change in soil carbon. So the question is, do you measure your trees to say no emissions reductions, no loss, and then you measure your in-tree management as that's where the removals is happening?
Right.
I don't have an answer to that question, but it's been going through my head.
So,
Sorry, I suppose also maybe the models are not necessarily able to combine both components. So that's.
So we need to stop within the next 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to give everyone a final say, but I'm going to allow myself a final say as well. I think when it comes to the models, we need to understand, we need deep linking between the crop models and the tree models, and that needs to include the effect of the tree management, because it's not often realized that you really absolutely need to prune the above ground branches of the trees. When you do that, the fine roots will die, and you're making an immediate carbon pump into the soil, and you're doing that at depth. And it's the structural carbon that dies, because the mobile carbon, when you prune it above ground, the mobile carbon is moved above ground to grow more leaves. So the structural carbon is dying. And you also need to be able to include the effect of root pruning, and root pruning is vital in order to reduce the competition between the tree roots and the crop roots. And of course, as you cut the roots, you're immediately pumping a lot more carbon into the soil. What you don't do is prune the roots at the same time as you prune the branches, and then the tree won't have the flexibility to be able to recover from that. So you need to understand the biology of the trees when you're farming. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to say maybe what needs to be done more to improve the future of agroforestry carbon farming for your own international perspectives or your own particular group of actors.
Yes, so from what I see, it's very nice we have this discussion to also include the soil and then different model and then measurement, but we really need to be careful not to overcomplicate the methodology. That is not our goal. And then how to make this MRV more affordable for smallholder projects, for example, in my cases, and for all those farmers to be affordable, and then for one data to be used that can be applied for multiple purposes, for example, the EUDR, the CRCF, and then the other certification requirement for business reporting. Do not disturb the farmer too much, because farmers' end goal at the end of the day is really to increase the yield productivity and then to get harvest, because that is their main source of income. Carbon and biodiversity, everything that comes with, it's on top